And welcome back to another Integrated Interventions podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Dundas, the Director of Education, and glad to have Terry Edelmann alongside me today as we talk about nature and the importance of nature within the program at Integrated Interventions. So let's go ahead and get started, Terry, and talk about why nature is important to you. I mean, you've lived in North Idaho for a long time and you're an avid outdoorsman. And can you talk about the importance of nature as it relates to integrated interventions?
Yeah, well, I think we're just starting off with why it's important to me. And then, obviously we have a program that, we have an agenda, so we can talk a little bit about what that looks like. So it's important to me because I think, as a young person, we spend most of our time outdoors. It was just normal. People will say, well, it was a safer world then, right? And there wasn't so many dangers. Nowadays, if you leave your house, you're going to get hurt somehow. There's just no way around it. So why would you leave the house? And then we've created all these things to help people stay in the house and keep them entertained. Most of it has to do with plugging into a wall somehow. For myself as a kid, it was outdoor experiences, which, lots of people, they think of the outdoors and they're like, oh, you guys are hunters and you're fishermen and you're backpackers and you're scaling, mountains and walls and glaciers and all this kind of extreme of the outdoors. And that's true. Whitewater rafting and kayaking and, traveling the world under a backpack or hitchhiking. There's lots of people who do that. But just going out and going for a hike every day, having an understanding of your, flora and fauna. Most people don't. They're completely disconnected. As a kid, I can remember, it wasn't that we had bad parents. It was just that your parents were like, hey, get out of the house and go do something. I don't want to see you until dinner time. It was just like, go away, have fun, learn something. We built forts. We built a raft and we floated the creek. We would build slingshots. We would build bow and arrow. And of course we had these fantasies of, David Bowie and what was it? David Bowie.
I want to say David Crockett. David Crockett.
What's Bowie's last?
Jim Bowie?
Jim Bowie.
Jim Bowie.
Yeah, from
Jim
the Bowie,
Bowie,
from the Bowie knife. Yeah. So, David Bowie came later. We did want to be musicians later, which had nothing to do with the outdoors. And this was a big old concert. But yeah, so, you just had these mountain man stories and you had the frontier idea of settlement and, conquering the wilderness. And then somewhere in there, it became kind of being one with the wilderness. Some of the Native American belief systems we had, First People belief systems that I grew up around were super important to us. And then, later in life, you just kind of watch those things change and it became more about an urban lifestyle. I think to me, having that background, growing up as a kid, playing outdoors, the connection to the outdoors, to the water, to the mountains, to the trees, to the seasons and understanding, what that felt like, that was just part of your life. Then later in life, you recognize that people don't have that connection at all because they're just so well, protected, or it's a buffer. You don't have to worry about dressing warm when you go outside because you're going to get in a vehicle that's got a heater in it. And then you're going to go somewhere to a building that's got a heater in it. So you don't have that kind of exposure. And if you don't put yourself in those elements, you never will. You're not going to have it. So a lot of our students are raised without any of that. Later in life, for me, there was a lot of, picking up jobs that had to do with the outdoors. So whether it was, being camp counselor and having, kids that you were working with playing in canoes and kayaks and teaching them to fish. And that might be the 1 week in the summer that they actually get to do something like that because they came from an urban or inner city culture, right? Where they're not exposed to any of that. They don't understand it. And it's super exciting to them while they're doing it, but chances are they're probably going to go back and not do it again. They don't have the opportunity to seek out those resources. You go to a city and your exposure to the outdoors might be a city park where you have paved bicycle trails, rules about not playing in a fountain. You can't build a slingshot and shoot at things or fling an arrow. You just can't do that kind of stuff. But later on, I had a job, created a business called a Mountain Mascot. And I took people from, inner city kids to adults that wanted to experience the outdoors. Some of those people were photographers, and they knew I could get them in on wildlife. So I would take them out and they would take pictures of deer and bear and mountain lions and bobcats and lynx and badgers and wolverine and all kinds of cool stuff, right? And then I was a fishing guide. I've done that for a very long time. And so had a chance to take people backpacking, high mountain expeditions to just whitewater rafting and fishing in between. Just a lot of that. Hunting guides, lake excursions, just the actual survival stuff. So I taught survival schools and desert survival and winter survival and all these kind of neat things. So I've always kind of immersed myself in that culture. But it's interesting to watch people come to get that experience and play in that environment and then try to figure out when they go home, where can I actually do these things? And it kind of limited, like most people's idea of doing that is a national park where you have, restrooms and you have parking spots and you have a picnic table and you have, clean water to drink. It's not really, a deeper understanding of how to exist in conjunction with the elements. Of course, you start talking about that, and then you have people that are like, oh, that's prepper talk. You're talking about being a survivalist. And no, I'm just talking about being able to put a backpack on your back and being able to follow a trail into the mountains and have a tent and sleep in a warm sleeping bag, pack some food in with you and being able to make that food and enjoy that experience where when you get ready to go to sleep at night, you could see every star in the sky. You don't have the light pollution and you can hear every cricket and every frog and the wind blowing in the leaves. You don't have noise pollution. Like we're sitting in an office right now and I'm listening to cars go by. You have all these, it's just constant distraction. In the hallway, I can hear fans. I can hear people moving indoors and you never get to a place where things are completely silent, except for, natural sounds. And the other thing is that most people in this world have no idea what it is to be alone. Like truly alone, like to be by yourself somewhere and not be able to, look out a window and see something, not be able to pick up a cell phone and talk to somebody, to be able to unplug from all that, not even have access to that. Nowadays you take, you guys go backpacking, you take phone chargers, and you record the whole thing on a GoPro or your cell phone. And then the reason you're doing that is so that you can post on social media. You're not alone by any means. So try to be able to understand it. It also builds self-confidence. It helps treat anxiety. If you're scared of something, immersing yourself, that immersement into those things that you're scared of will help you overcome that fear. And maybe you need a group of people to do that. I'm scared to go on a climb. I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can go on a hike. I don't know if I have the right shoes. What if I get a blister? What am I going to eat? What if it rains a little bit? Might mess up my hair, my makeup, or get my shirt wet. Am I going to be able to call people and talk to them on the phone? How do I text somebody? Like, they're just so connected to outlets. A great book. It's by, I think his name's Richard Love. I think it's L-O-U-V. And he talks about, it's called The Last Child in the Woods. And he does some really great interview stuff with people around the country and a lot of good studies. But it demonstrates how as a society, as a commercialized society, we've pushed people into neighborhoods and pushed people into boxes because of our fear of doing anything outside of that. And, when you look at our student population, they're scared of everything. And they're not scared of doing drugs, things that could kill you that way. They're scared of going into the woods because the dark might get you, the boogeyman might get you, the trees make noises. Like, they're scared of things that are unreasonable to be scared of. Doesn't matter whether they're, 18 or 35, they're coming to us from a place of being directly connected to an electrical outlet. We have students that have launched out of high school, went to experience college, had anxiety, ended up back at their parents' house, ended up back in a basement playing video games. And at 30, we're getting a call and the parents are like, we're fed up. We're done. They won't disconnect. They're scared of everything. They won't go get a job. They don't know how to be around. They don't know how to be social. And a lot of these experiences foundationally could, through exploration, You can build confidence through nature. You can, help subdue anxiety by unplugging. The second that you enter whatever social media platform you're on, that it is commercially designed to follow whatever you're looking at. So now you're fed information about the one thing you want, which makes you feel like that's the rest of the world, right? That's your social media platform. That's the rest of the world. And that's not true, because it's a commercialized aspect. It's designed for all those individuals. So you got to break away from that. Get away from that. It elevates anxiety. The minute you plug into social media, people's anxiety goes up, not down. That light, the screen light. There's another book that's out, and I can't remember what it's called. It's like Blue Light Babies or something. Anyway, I'd have to look it up. You can Google it, I'm sure. Another way to plug in. Go ahead and Google it. Don't go to a library and research any of this. Just go ahead and plug into the wall, Google it.
So use the Dewey Decimal System?
Yeah, use it. What? Nobody even knows what that is, Patrick.
I know. I'm saying stuff that just isn't relevant anymore.
No, it's not relevant anymore. Why would you go do the footwork? What's a phone book? So, and you don't go meet people to learn something. You don't go ask questions. You just go ahead and Google it. But figure out some of these other books, like the blue line aspect of how detrimental that is to your brain as you try to have sleep hygiene and settle down at night, to be able to clear your mind, and to be in the moment. We have all this, these teachings where students come in our program and they're, in the middle of a crisis, and we're trying to help them with coping skills. And some of those coping skills are to ground them so that they're, not future tripping. It's not compounding their fears. Take in some air, do some breathing and calm down, and let's have some coping skills. And then you go on to your coping skills that perpetuate wellness. And all those have to do with, exercise, nutrition, outdoor activities, hobbies. It doesn't have anything to do with plugging into social media. It doesn't have anything to do, it doesn't really have anything other than your medication to help stabilize you. Once you're stable, then you have the ability to engage in the things that are going to perpetuate mental health and physical health, right? Emotional wellness comes from these activities that nobody learns growing up anymore. Another thing, when it's a different generation, obviously, but kids that are raised in the outdoors, kids that have access to the outdoors or that are exposed to the outdoors, that learn those kinds of activities, that outdoor involvement, they have less interest in online gaming, for example. They don't understand why would you sit in the house and get on a game to play with people that aren't in the same room with you. They're another part of the country or the world. And then to identify those people as your friends, that this is my culture. These are my friends. You never met them. You never will meet them. And then to be able to take that and turn that into relationships with people that are in different parts of the country that you call your girlfriend or your boyfriend, your friend in general, that you've never met. You're not pen pals. You're just playing video games together. So, again, commercialization is this pushing people into communities, pushing people, into their neighborhood, pushing them into their house, and then making sure that it's not safe for them to go outside anymore. That's a big part of what's going on. I think that as a kid, if you wanted to play basketball, you joined a team or you went to the basketball courts. Yeah,
you went to the park or wherever the neighborhood spot was for playing.
Yeah, and you had a bunch of neighborhood kids you hung out with, and you knew your neighbors by name. And now you don't do that. Either your HOA says that you can't have that. You can't play in the neighborhood pond. Somebody might drown. You can't play with the frogs and play with the fish there. You can't feed the ducks there because somebody might get hurt and sue the HOA. So you can't do that. You can't have basketball courts in front of your house or build skateboard ramps or bicycle jumps. Somebody might get hurt. Somebody's going to get sued. So you just go ahead and go in the house, stay in the house. And now you're in a safe place. You can plug into the wall, and then, you should probably buy some stuff while you're plugged into the wall. I don't know, but we've removed people from the outdoors. Another reason it's really important to me to have people experience the outdoors is the outdoors needs friends. We talk about this when you look at national parks, people visit national parks. So there's population of people there that they don't want national parks to go away. It's a beautiful place to go play. But anywhere where there's public lands available, North Idaho, I can leave this office and in 5 minutes I could be on public land, and I can stay on public land all the way through Montana, through the Dakotas, Wyoming. I can go all the way to Canada on public lands, dirt roads, paved roads, but you're surrounded by public lands.
Well, and that's pretty amazing too when you consider there are significant parts of the country that are privatized.
You go to Texas. I love Texas, but there's very little public land in Texas.
Yeah.
It's a lot of private property. And if you live in the city, you're surrounded by private property. Everything's got rules. Everything's got laws. It's not, you can't just go out and immerse yourself. I can't just take a tent and drive off and go camp somewhere and unplug from everything and take a break from all of that noise, all that just noise. And I think people don't really think of it as noise. You're sitting in front of a computer, you're in an office, you don't think of it as noise. Kids are sitting in the house or playing a video game, they don't think of it as noise. But it's noisy to your brain. You don't ever give your brain a chance to just relax and stop. It creates anxiety. Everybody's so anxiety driven. So that exposure to nature is important for multiple aspects. One of those aspects is that if a river doesn't have visitors, then it doesn't have people that are paying attention to protecting the river. If you have private land, you're not allowed to go on that. There's no trespassing. Well, then you just accept the fact that you can't go there. But when you have public land and you can go do whatever you want on public land, then you see people that don't have that. They're not allowed to do that. There's countries where there's no public land at all. You don't have access to public land where anybody could just go out there and enjoy it. And it's really important that we protect that in this country. Generationally, we won't be able to protect that public land if it doesn't have friends. People need to be able to go out and enjoy that and understand it so that then there's somebody there speaking up to help protect it so it doesn't get sold off to paper companies and timber companies or big housing developments, private tract lands. Just if you don't have the ability to do it, or if you don't understand how to do it, research private tracts. Large tracts. And that is land that has been bought up specifically to be developed someday. It used to be public. The state sold it or the feds sold it to somebody that had a company, conglomerates usually, that have, the funds to be able to buy up those public lands that someday will be housing tracts. And I think everybody needs housing. I'm not saying that they don't need housing. I'm saying you should probably pay attention to the stuff that belongs to everybody and how that ends up being privatized. So there's a lot of reasons there, from mental health and understanding that mental health, that being able to go out and enjoy those things, how that benefits people, to protecting that so it doesn't go away. It's a much broader picture. But if we just back up to our program, to our student population, that interaction with the outdoors helps with anxiety, helps with mood stability. It helps with independence. It helps people develop up self-worth. And one of the saddest things that we're watching in the treatment world is the disappearance of wilderness programs. And it's sad to watch that because the students that come to us from wilderness have a better understanding that who they are. You get a student from wilderness, they feel like they could conquer the world. They've had to live under a backpack. They've had to sleep on, in tents, and they had to sleep on the ground. They've had to cook their own food. Things that adults might have to do. Challenges that an adult would be like, oh, I could take care of that. And we have young people that are able to do those things. So they come to us with this idea of, hey, I can do anything. Give me a challenge. I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to launch. I can conquer whatever. And we're losing that. You don't get that when they come from RTCs and hospitals. They're as helpless when they get to us as they were when they went in, other than being stable. You don't get better in a hospital. You get stable in a hospital. Then you go somewhere else to get better. You don't learn life skills and social skills. You don't learn the ability to date, drive a car, manage money, have work ethic. You don't learn that while you're getting stable on medication. You have to get stable on medication before you're able to do those things. So we're losing that exposure to the outdoors. And it's important to me that people understand that's a vital part of stability. It is a vital part of mental health wellness and filling your heart and mind full of, positive things. Everything from I can and I can accomplish and I can conquer. You can't tell me I can't do this. I'm gonna be able to show you I can. Being able to do something for the first time and being able to high five somebody. Same with work ethic. Just the idea that I can start a task, finish a task, and accomplish those things. You see that all the time when you're in the wilderness, when you're in the woods. So yeah, I think that overall, starting as a kid, being able to connect that outdoor experience to the work ethic and the idea that you can do anything. You can't stop me. I can accomplish anything. I've been able to prove that. Being able to get hurt, skin up your knee and not having somebody swoop in and save you. Just, get up and wipe your knee off and keep moving, to being able to recognize that our outdoor resources are vitally important and we should be protecting those, and that those outdoor resources need people as much as people need the outdoor resources.
We're working with a generation of young adults who have never known a world without the internet, or have never known a world without certain technologies. And I can reference the point of growing up, in rural North Central Washington, growing up in orchard country. I mean, I was doing a lot of the things that you were describing, getting out there, going to the river. I mean, the river was a 10-minute walk from where I grew up,
right.
Being fortunate to have all that. Or even with my friends in town, the parents were like, well, just be back before the streetlights come on.
Right. Yeah.
So there was that free range parenting of like, okay.
You could still play outside because you had a street light. So at least you could play.
And we were playing, tag games that went over the whole town.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and these were long, multi-hour tag games
right.
that I think a generation of young adults that we're working with had never experienced anything like that.
Yeah.
So bringing it back to nature, what does that mean to you to be able to introduce someone that has never had that experience, and to be able to say, I've never been in the forest, or I've never put a fish on a line, or any number of experiences that you've had a chance to be able to introduce students at Integrated? What does that mean to you?
Oh man, while you were describing that, I was picturing a young man from about 6 years ago that came to us from a hospital. He grew up immersed in a culture of plugging into a wall, and then there's some mental, there's some mental health issues that started to develop that came from those things. The anxiety of all the gaming and the lack of interpersonal relationship. The lack of parenting that was involved, because parents don't relate to video games, and they're able to plug into that and then ignore parents. They're putting headphones on and have no idea what's going on around them, and parents just don't know what to do with that. How do we get this kid up and get him moving? Parents are professionals. They have jobs. They're trying, they're providing. They both have careers. There's a lot of things that go into that. And this young man came to us, and mental health started to turn into inappropriate behaviors. The internet activity became connecting with people that would help him with more inappropriate behaviors. And then we ended up with a drug culture. Marijuana first, but it's not marijuana like, it's not like you're smoking pot. I mean, we're not talking about getting some leaf or shake or buds. Like, most people don't even know what I'm talking about nowadays. We're talking about it came from a store, probably had a drive-through. You don't have to have a dealer anymore. You just go buy it at a store. And if you don't live in a place where you can buy it in a store, you just drive over the border and, to another state and get it.
Yeah, legalization has changed so much in terms of how we approach treatment, I feel like, or anyone that lives near a state or lives in a state where legalization is real.
Yeah, the marijuana-induced psychosis in this country is phenomenal, and people continue to ignore it with the idea that, the pot must have been laced with something. Oh, they must have had fentanyl in it. It's just, you can put so much THC in your head with a dab or a vape pen consistently and easily and affordably. And lots of people's brains aren't meant to manage that. And so you end up with a psychotic break, and then sometimes you end up with a permanent psychosis. You end up with schizophrenia, and now you're on psych meds. It's just, it's rampant, and people continue to ignore it. Like it's not the problem. It must be something else. It can be pot. But pot is not pot anymore. Kids don't know that. Kids just get, they just put a bunch of pot in their head. So anyway, he ends up doing THC, ends up then moving toward wanting more euphoria. That's not enough. Gets introduced to prescription drugs, snorting them or smoking them or taking them, putting them on the THC, whatever that looked like. And then that moves to wanting to be even more numb than that. And that turns into oxys, fentanyl. And then when you can't afford those, then heroin is super cheap and easy to get. So I get a student that is coming from a hospital where he's had a psychotic break. He thinks that the Tweety birds in the bushes are people following him around with cameras. He can hear voices of things that aren't there. And so he comes to us for treatment. And as he comes through the door, we're starting to take a look at, what catches his attention. So you take him into our shop and you just watch their face and you can see him look at a certain tool and you're like, hey, do you know what that is? Nah, I don't know what that is. So you start to teach them something. You find out that they like hands-on projects. You take them for a hike and you realize that they like the view of the lake from the peak of Tubbs Hill. And you're like, wow, wouldn't it be cool to take a picture of that? You know anything about photography. So you start to introduce them to these things and develop some other interests. So this young man happened to like fly fishing, which for me is awesome because I love fly fishing. So I started teaching him about fly fishing and then immediately started teaching why we're on the river in a boat. I'm like, hey, why don't you stick over the sticks for a minute so I could fish? And I start teaching them about how to run the oars on the boat. We call them sticks, but you're running oars. So you're learning how to navigate a craft in the water, which for most people seems like a pretty extreme thing. And when you have the right teacher, it's not extreme at all, right? And so, but it's exposure to something that he probably would have never, ever sought out to do. So he catches a fish. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at a young person who's he's got like a net in his lap and a fish in a net, and he just can't stop crying. And I'm like, and so, my first thoughts are treatment. So I'm like, we're in a boat on the water. We need to get to somewhere that's more controllable. So I start navigating to the edge of a river, and I'm like, hey, buddy, what's going on? We get over to the edge, we anchor up, and I'm like, listen, when you can catch a breath, when you feel like talking, just tell me what's going on. And so then I'm like, okay, we need to distract from the moment a little bit. And I'm like, hey, that fish probably needs to get back in the water. We're going to release this fish. Let's get it back in the water. So I work with him to get the fish back in the water. He gets some air moving through, gets some oxygen to the blood in his head. And I said, you want to tell me what's going on? He was like, well, 60 days ago, I was in a hospital where I thought I had people following me, secretly filming me. I was hearing things that weren't there. And now I'm in a boat on a river to him, felt like the middle of nowhere. It's not. It's, 40 minutes from here on a paved road. You can drive there and launch a boat. But it felt like in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the wilderness. I'm sitting in a boat and I just caught a fish on a fly rod, which I never would have thought that I would be doing. Yeah, he's like, I don't know how to thank you. I don't know how I ended up where I was before. So when you look at the history of that mental health and how that young man progressed through the stages of getting sicker while in an environment that his parents thought they were protecting him from all of the bad things that might happen to you if you're outside. Skinning your knee, getting yelled at by a boss, having to, crying because you're physically, emotionally broke down because you've had to work so hard, being bullied by other people in sports or whatever. You've protected them from all these things that are normal so that they could get sicker. And that's what we see consistently is that we've protected our population from normal things, normal challenges, so that we could keep them healthy. And in doing so that we could protect them and keep them happy. And in doing so, we've made them sicker. And so, that was just loud and bold and in my face. And I've seen it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times over this year. It'll be 40 years of helping people in treatment, all variations of treatment. But that wilderness exposure, that outdoor exposure, that being involved in nature, those natural challenges that we're protecting people from are the things that are going to make them stronger. They're the things that are going to help them overcome their anxiety, overcome their mental illness, have the challenges that make them feel better about themselves, feel accomplished, be self-driven and self-sustainable. That mental health. It's stunning how powerful that is. And unless you're exposed to that, unless you have somebody that can teach you those things and give you the opportunity to do that, you're never going to know that. And then you think that the way to wellness is the things that you've been doing. And it's not the fact. It's not the case. And it was just really bold in my face that this young man was like, I'm here and I'm getting better doing things that I would have never done, that nobody else has ever suggested that I do. Nobody else has taken the time to teach me. I thought it was all about taking medication, going to treatment, sitting in groups, having therapy. And yeah, all those things are important because, they lend to you being stable so that now you can learn the things that create balance so that you can have that sustainable wellness.
Oh, and building resilience too.
Yeah. How are you going to build resilience if you don't have any challenges? Everybody's protecting everybody from being hurt. It hasn't protected anybody. What it's done is helped people avoid the things that make you stronger. Falling down and hurting yourself and then being told, okay, get up. That makes you stronger. Falling down, hurting yourself and having two people swoop in and scoop you up and hold you and coddle you and protect you from the next fall. Okay, no more riding bikes for you because you got hurt. No more going outside. You always skin your knee, right? That hasn't helped anybody at all.
Well, what are some of the activities that someone might find on their daily calendar here at Integrated Interventions from a student perspective, or being able to get out there and do things? What are some common things that you might see a student do?
That's one of my favorites. So starting with work ethic at the farm, just that outdoor environment of being able to plant a seed and grow something, harvest that seed to market kind of understanding of where your food comes from. That's a huge one. People just don't understand that. They think that you go to a grocery store and you get it. We students, they don't know where the water goes when you flush a toilet. They don't know where the water comes from when you turn on a sink or where it disappears to down the drain. There's zero connection to anything, from a functional standpoint. Working with your hands aspect, super important. But the outdoor activities, the fun things, we have what we call adventure contracts here. It's really important to us to be able to sit down with a student, drive around, show them what area they're in, look at magazines so you can see a picture, be able to tell stories about things you've done or things they've done, and then be able to expand on that. They went on a whitewater trip with their family one time, and then their idea is that maybe they could pay somebody to take them on another whitewater trip, but they can't really afford that. And then we're like, well, what if we taught you how to run a raft yourself and we go on a whitewater trip? And they're like, what are you talking about? Well, it's super easy. I can show you how to run a whitewater raft. It's just, we expand quickly into things that they would have never been exposed to. So if you walk into the overhangs on the shop, there's 15 mountain bikes, and we have an endless amount of trails in North Idaho. And then, you go the next shelf over, and there's 15 tents, there's 8 backpacks, there's 25 sleeping bags. There's, endless amount of fly rod, fishing rods, outdoor activity, outdoor oriented. We have camera equipment. You can do photography. We have art supplies. You can do painting. You can go sit on the side of a mountain in a chair with an easel, and somebody will help you understand how to paint what you're looking at instead of just taking a picture of it. You can do that on your phone. Yeah, you can edit it on a computer. But how about we take a camera that actually has 35 millimeter film and have to get that developed? How about we teach you how to develop that film? There's nothing that we can't do. There's no scenario that you could come up with as long as it's legal, that we can't put a student in front of. I don't care if it's, rock climbing, rappelling, kayaking, canoeing, fishing, hunting, hiking, mountain climbing, camping, driving a car, learning how to run an off-road vehicle, dirt bike, motorcycle, mountain bike, archery. There's nothing that you can come up with that we can't safely introduce you to and then have you understand how that connects to a wellness. I think archery is a good example. A lot of kids, when they go to camp or maybe even in school, they have like this little archery class. You take a little plastic bow and you shoot an arrow at a target. Well, people forget that that's an Olympic sport. The amount of concentration that it takes, the amount of anxiety that you have to deal with to be able to hit a target downrange with a stick fired from a string, it's pretty incredible. And then the act of doing that one-on-one with somebody, that relationship foundation, companionship, and then the culture of other people that do that, the clubs where that's an activity and the support that come with those clubs, people are missing that entirely. They just think archery, well, it's either hunting or it's something that children do and it's just not the case. So, it's a good example of any of those scenarios. Any activity that you could choose that might make somebody nervous is an activity that they should be engaged in so that we can help them understand how to manage anxiety. If nothing else, just how to try something new, deal with the anxiety that comes with that, and understand maybe on a whiteboard what that looks like with, here's your regular functioning behavior. Now you have this little trigger of, I'm going to try something new that creates anxiety, and you need coping skills in place to be able to work through that anxiety. And it doesn't matter whether that's new and fun or whether it's, something traumatic. It's the same scenario at maybe elevated responses. But once you understand a coping skill for one, you can apply that to others. And that's why that outdoor experience is just vitally important.
Well, the opportunity to live in the moment.
Yeah, you got to be in the moment. That's another problem with this whole social media. Not only is it commercialized, not only is it aimed at creating fear in your world. People say, well, it gives me the information I'm looking for. Right. But the information that most people are looking for they're not researching how to be mindful and how to be in the moment and how to be at peace with themselves. They're not getting on there and researching outdoor activities and where to find those activities so you can go do it in person. They're getting on there and looking up what the most popular musician or what the most popular athlete or what the most popular actor is complaining about. And then they're trying to figure out how that fits to that, how's that aimed toward me? How am I relating to what's somebody that I've never even met? I'm never even going to live in a world, it's clearly what's going on with me. And it's just not accurate. This TikTok thing that's going on currently, where they're self-diagnosing, where you have a movie star. I'll just pick on movie star. You have a movie star that's like, I was misdiagnosed and now I've learned to self-diagnose. So, if these things are going on with you, that's probably what's wrong. Now we have a whole bunch of kids, thousands and thousands, a million hits on some of these things that are going on and self-diagnosing based on something that a movie star stated. It's just absolute ridiculousness. The fact that you've got that much influence and they're not talking to their parents. They're not talking to the people that are next door to them. They're not talking to people in their community. They're going on online and finding this TikTok universe to support their own sickness. It all needs to go away. I wish we could figure out how to make it all go away. But anyway, in the meantime, it has nothing to do with reality, has nothing to do with being in the moment, has nothing to do with self-awareness. Those are the things that come from, being in the moment, in the wilderness, having a companion, that one-on-one relationship. Those are the foundations we're looking to build from.
Yeah, today's podcast has been great because we've been able to talk with Terry and learn some more about the importance of nature, not only from a program standpoint, but also from his perspective of being an avid outdoorsman and someone that's been someone that's spent a large portion of his life in the outdoors. I think it's awesome too, Terry, that you've been able to impart that wisdom, but also impart that love for the outdoors to be able to introduce it to someone that maybe never had the opportunity.
Oh, thanks. It's super important. It's just part of what we do and we should be doing. We're going to continue to do.
Awesome. Well, once again, thanks for taking the time to join us and to talk more about this. And who knows, there could be a part 2 or 3 to this, because really nature is something that we always find in some way or another. I feel like when we have these conversations and it's related to integrated, being so close to you, we live in an amazing area that has so many opportunities. And I think that's also mind blowing to people that have never had a chance to experience it.
Well, along those lines, Patrick, I think that, I'm talking about being plugged in. I'm talking about being connected, social media. I'm talking about computers, and we're doing a podcast. And we're going to put that in a platform where people can see that, where most people are looking at it, which we're trying to get people to stop doing. So I think, part 2, part 3 should be that we're going out into the woods and demonstrating what it is we're talking about. Because a lot of people, they just don't have the ability to live in an area that we do. They don't have the ability to step away from, their professional life. In a way that we do. I live here. So on the way home, I can drive out and look at elk. I can drive out and look at the lake, and I can go park at the end of something and not hear traffic. I can 20 minutes away not have light pollution and see the stars in the Milky Way, watch owls and bats operate at night, like cool stuff. Some people can't do that. They have a profession. Their profession leads them to live where they live. I think that it's important for us to be able to bring nature to those folks that don't have the chance to go see it. So I think probably the follow-up should be outside.
I agree. Yep. Part 2 is putting it in action.
Yeah, there we go.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Terry. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate being here.